Welcome in to the Roll Tide Rewind. We have a bracket. It is March, and we have a bracket. The March Madness starts this Thursday, and the brackets were just released less than an hour ago, and the boys are already hopping on, and we're going to give our reactions to Alabama seeding. What's the potential Final Four run? Did they get it right? How do we see the regions going out? Final Four picks. That's all you have here. We're going to sit back and just talk March and talk March Madness. Little news, I'm engaged. Since Ryan was last on, he's now engaged. And Cole has been married for like 6 or 7 years. But we'll start with Ryan. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Thomas. How are you?
Doing great. Cole, how about you?
Doing great, Thomas. Excited for you. Excited for the whole month of March, and only 3 years. Okay, don't make me sound like I'm older than I am. Okay, only 3 years.
I'll be fair. He got married the night before Alabama played Gonzaga when Drew Timme was still there. So I'll give him credit where credit's due. Well, let's hop and talk about the bracket. What for the Midwest region? Alabama was thrown into Michigan's side of the bracket. Alabama is going to play Hofstra in the first game. We're going to break that down. We'll break down potential Texas Tech matchup in the second round of 32, and then we'll kind of talk about this region as a whole. Talk about seed orders. Do we like how we saw this region? We'll spend more of a time on the Midwest region than the other regions because it's Alabama's region. But the first question is, how do you like the draw of Michigan being the 1 seed, Ryan?
I mean, I think they deserve it as a 1 for sure. I think they have a pretty good path. St. Louis scares me a little bit for them. I love the way St. Louis plays, but I think Michigan is the 1 seed that I would pick them to go all the way. I think I've got them to the Sweet 16 for sure. I love their path early.
Do you think Michigan would be the 1 seed you would want to see out of Arizona, Duke, and Florida for Alabama's sake?
Yeah, for sure, especially currently with their injury issues. I think they're the most vulnerable one of all the 4 ones currently. So, yeah, I mean, I was happy to get them in Alabama's bracket. I'll take it any day.
And then for you, Cole, what about the draw of Hofstra as the 13 seed? We'll start kind of going into the breaking down this matchup, but what do you think about the 13 seed of Hofstra?
Sure. So on here, I guess a week ago now, we talked about maybe some of the teams that we would want Alabama to avoid in the first round, as well as some of the teams that might be a good matchup for Alabama. Hofstra was on the list of teams that I would wanted to avoid at that time, and I still feel the same way. To me personally, they're probably the most dangerous 13 seed because they have two really, really good guards that they kind of play through. They play slow. They hit a lot of threes. It's kind of a scary profile for a 13 seed. But I don't want to get too negative on Alabama's draw because I think overall this was a pretty solid draw for Alabama. We can go into it more as we go through the video, but Hofstra in particular I think was a tough draw as a 13 seed.
Yeah, well, we'll break down the Alabama side of the matchup in just a second, but I first wanted to touch on this. It's a little dark because I took it on my phone, but these are the top 4 seeds by region. Arkansas got up to a 4 seed, and I honestly thought that Alabama was not going to get a 4 seed, but we got the luck of the draw and we were able to get a 4 seed, probably pretty comfortable 4 seed as the 14 overall seed, as Vanderbilt somehow was not I thought they'd be a top 16 seed, but I was overruled by the committee. What is y'all's thoughts on we'll start with you, Cole, 1 through 16. Do you think, is there a team left out? You think Alabama's too high, too low? Or like, how do you see, which region is one region more stacked than the other? What do you see?
Yeah, so I think Vanderbilt's a good call out, Thomas. That was one that I was shocked to not see on the top 4. When I saw Arkansas hit a 4 seed and the fact that Kansas had already gotten a 4 seed, I was very worried we were going to be dropping down to the 5 line because I assumed Vanderbilt would take the Final 4 spot. But we stay ahead of Vanderbilt, which is big. We actually were also ahead of Kansas and Arkansas, which kind of surprises me. But overall, a good seed as a 4. Honestly, I need to give some props to the committee here. I did the bracket for Roll Tide Rewind that posted on our Twitter earlier today. I had no major discrepancies. I had only one team different, and it was Texas was my very first team out, and I had Auburn as my last team in. So that was the only difference there. And very happy it went this way as opposed to the way that I had it. So honestly, I thought this was one of the least surprising. Like normally you get 2 or 3 teams that are just like, why are they here, or why are they 3 or 4 spots lower than most people have them? This year I didn't really have too many nitpicks. So
anything you see out of these top 16, Ryan, that you wanted to point out?
Purdue getting to the 2 kind of surprised me, but I mean, they did just win the Big Ten tournament, so you can't really argue it.
Yeah.
I wasn't surprised we were a 4. I thought we were going to be a 4. I don't really think the committee weighs the conference championship games or even the conference tournaments as a whole when it's with teams who are already in the field. And so I think we see that with Vanderbilt being a 5 and us being a 4. Yeah, nobody really surprises me. I think the committee did a pretty good job.
Yeah. I see like they show these top 4 seed totals and everybody kind of freaks out because this happens, I think, every year with the 1 seed. They think the 1 seed always has the worst draw every year, but I like Duke's draw. I think they have the easiest 2 seed. Out of the 3 line, I do like Michigan State, but I do think Illinois probably is a more scarier matchup offensively than they are. And then 4 seed of Kansas. Out of those 4, Nebraska and Arkansas, the 4 seeds have looked good at times this year, but I think Duke got a pretty decent draw. But Arizona's draw, poor Arizona, that's the highest number on there, but that is a draw. Purdue at the hottest, Gonzaga can be good, and then Arkansas is getting hot at the right time. So that's a draw for Arizona. But we'll tune it back and we'll go to the Alabama side of things. A little more bright here. Thank you, CBS. What about Hofstra? We'll start with you, Cole. I'll go a little bit, but you mentioned about the 2 guards they have, and you mentioned in the last episode that a team that's a 12, 13, 14, 15, or 16 seed, what scares you the most is good guard play. Not necessarily good big play, but good guard play. They got 2 guards. Cruz Davis, 20.2 points per game, shoots 40% from the 3-point line. He shot over 200 threes this year. Preston Edmead, 16 points per game, just a freshman. And he's shooting almost 38.5% from 3 on over 200 attempts. So they have 2 really great shooters, but those are their main scorers. They have no one else averaging above 10 points per game. They are in KenPom, they're 87th. KenPom strength of schedule is 173rd, which compared to Alabama's Alabama has 2nd strength of schedule and the 18th ranked KenPom. But Hofstra hasn't played the competition that Alabama has. Alabama's played 14 quad 1 games, and then they've also played 11 quad 2, whereas Hofstra's 0-1 in quad 1 and 2-2 in quad 2, and they've played 27 matchups in the quad 3, quad 4, including 3 quad 4 losses. 89th in offensive rating, 95th in defensive rating. But one thing Ryan mentioned, and I'll start with Ryan, he mentioned tempo, 317th in tempo for Hofstra and 4th out for Alabama. What is it like to play a team that kind of just will try to slow your game down? We saw this against Grand Canyon 2 years ago, but Ryan, why is tempo so important in this matchup? And also give me your thoughts on the matchup.
Well, I think tempo is going to be huge because when you look at Hofstra's turnover rate, it's 149th in the country. I think if you pick up the speed, up the tempo, and Bama plays to their speed, I think Hofstra has a chance to turn it over and give us some easy buckets on the other end. In terms of tempo, historically, we've done a pretty good job of establishing tempo and getting teams to play at our pace. I know you mentioned Grand Canyon, but even in that game, I kind of felt like it was closer to the pace of our normal games than Grand Canyon's normal games. So I think if we can dictate the pace, we really have a chance to get them out of their element and force some easy plays for us.
Any thoughts you want to add on, Cole? I know you mentioned how Hofstra was the hardest 13 seed of the bunch. So what is your thoughts on Hofstra?
Sure, yeah. Hofstra to me is a scary team. I mentioned it. I think they're probably the scariest 13 of the 4 that we got in this bracket. One thing I want to highlight, you mentioned the guard play, the fact that they have 3 different starters that all shoot 38% or better from 3. That could be a dangerous thing to see in a lower seed. A lot of times 3-point variance is maybe the biggest thing that leads to upsets. That scares me. The other thing that scares me about Hofstra, they've actually won 2 games on the road against ACC teams this year, which is not something you see normally with teams rated this low. Now, granted, it was Pittsburgh and Syracuse, 2 teams that finished very, very low in the ACC, but the fact that they've won games on the road against high majors is something that concerns me a little bit. I still think Alabama will win. I think Thomas, you were mentioning opening line has Alabama at a 12.5 point favorite, if that's correct. Mm-hmm. So Alabama obviously the favorite here, but I do think Hofstra is a scary one, not one we want to look past.
Yeah, and 13 seed upsets have happened, I think, in 28 of the last 39 tournaments. I think 13 seed or higher. So this is something to watch out for. What about the draw of Texas Tech as the 5 seed? The other 5 seeds, I think, were Wisconsin, St. John's, and the other one is leaving my head. Vanderbilt. Well, we can't play Vanderbilt because they like to avoid the SEC games early as they can be. So between Wisconsin, St. John's, and Texas Tech, which Do we get the worst of the 5? Do we get the best of the 5? What is y'all's thoughts? I'll start with you, Cole.
This is one, if I had to pick a 5 seed, this is who I would have wanted to play. No disrespect at all to Texas Tech, who I think is a great program, one of the best coaches in the country, in my opinion, in Grant McCasland. But anytime you've got a team that's lost a National Player of the Year candidate about a month left in the season, that's going to be kind of a spot I would want to attack. Especially a team like Texas Tech that doesn't really have a lot of depth. They were really running through 2 players at the time. They're really down to 1 player that's kind of their high usage guy, Christian Anderson, who is a star without a doubt. But on the whole, I think Texas Tech is probably who I would want to play out of those 3. So I like that draw for Alabama.
Do you agree, Ryan?
Flip a coin for me for Texas Tech or Wisconsin. I didn't want to play St. John's. Like you said, we're never gonna play Vanderbilt. But yeah, I'm of the 5s, I'm fine with Texas Tech. I think they're for sure. Them and Wisconsin would be the worst one for me, but I can live with this. Especially, I mean, you look at what they've done the past 3 games. I think they've lost their last 3. So without a Player of the Year candidate, like Cole said, it's hard times out there.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that. I was going to mention whenever JT Topin got hurt, they were 19-6 going into the Arizona State game, dropped that game when he got hurt, 19-7. They routed off 3 straight wins, including going at Iowa State and winning without JT Topin to go 22-7. Then they lost to TCU by 8, lost to BYU by 6, and then lost to Iowa State by 22 in the Big 12 tournament. You also have with, like you said, out of the 5 seeds, I think that's probably who I prefer. St. John's is getting hot at the right time. We've already played them too, so I'm glad we're playing somebody else. But with Texas Tech, if we take like their 20th in KenPom, they played the 8 strength of schedule. They're very much battle tested. They've played 16 quad 1 games. They've had great wins against Duke. They have so many wins on their resume. They're also slow. They're 243rd in tempo. No quad 3 or quad 4 losses, just like Alabama does. If Alabama's pitted up against Texas Tech, how big is a guy like Aiden Sherrill in that game, Cole, when JT Topin's not going to play?
Yeah, I think it's huge. They don't have a very tall team. Their 4 guys that play the most are all under 6'6". So not a very big team. Like you mentioned, JT Topin kind of operated as their 5 until he got hurt. Now they've started operating with Luke Bamboy, I think is how you pronounce that. I could be wrong on that, but he's been operating kind of as their 5, not nearly the talent that JT Topin is. So if Aiden Sherrill could be a good mismatch inside for Alabama, he can also be a big deterrent at the rim for Texas Tech, a smaller Texas Tech team.
Yeah. Ryan, what would you think of a matchup with Texas Tech in the next round? Is there anybody to look out for Alabama in that matchup?
To piggyback on the Aiden Sherrill thing, I would love Aiden Sherrill coming up, setting ball screens, coming off and putting some of these smaller defenders for Texas Tech in conflict and having to figure out who they want to guard. I actually would love the matchup with Texas Tech in terms of looking at their roster and size and who all they have. Aiden Sherrill, like Cole said, been named to look out for. I think they would struggle to guard all of our guards. So, I mean, draw a name out of a hat for any of those guys, LeBaron, Aiden, Holloway, any of those guys, I think have a big one.
We'll talk about Akron for a second because that's a potential round of 32 matchup for us. Akron, 64th in KenPom, which is higher than Hofstra. 236 strength of schedule would be much worse than Hofstra. They're 29-5. They've, like Hofstra, they've not played many quad 1, quad 2. Most of Akron's damage came in quad 3, quad 4, with 16-0 in quad 4. But difference between them and Hofstra is 317th in tempo, whereas Akron is 32nd in tempo. This reminds me a lot of the Charleston matchup 2 years ago, where the high tempo teams go at it. Alabama just does it better than other teams do. Is that what you see happening in a potential matchup with Akron, Ryan, or do you think Alabama may try to play that differently?
No, I think it would be high tempo, super pace up and on the floor, track meet. Akron would kind of scare me. Now, I don't love their matchup against Texas Tech, but they can really shoot it. Like you think Hofstra can shoot it. Look at Akron's numbers. They can really shoot that thing. And like Cole mentioned, 3-point variance is huge in the NCAA tournament. I'd prefer not to play Akron. I would still think Alabama would beat them just out of us, like you said, being better at pace than they are. But I would prefer not to play Akron.
Anything you want to add on a potential Akron matchup, Cole?
Just maybe one thing. They played their toughest game they played all year. They played at Purdue. That game was 72 possessions, which was pretty high. They put up 79 points in that game. They did lose by 18, so they gave up 97. So I would expect a high-scoring game if we were to meet with Akron. I agree. I'm probably a little bit more scared of Hofstra than I am of Akron, but both are dangerous teams for sure.
Yeah. Akron 113th in defensive rating to Hofstra was 95th, so kind of similar in those things. We'll go to the Midwest region as a whole. We have Michigan possibly playing UMBC, another 16-1 upset. Please do it, UMBC. Georgia gets in the 8th seed, St. Louis 9 seed. I thought they'd drop a little bit lower. Then we also have Tennessee in our region. We did play them twice, but the earliest we would probably see them if they both were to get that far is the Elite 8. Virginia hopping up to a 3 seed. Kentucky's also in our region. And then Iowa State is the 2 seed. So let's do this. We want to make a path for Alabama to go to the Final Four. We don't have to predict everything on here, but if Alabama is to make the Final Four, what has to happen at this top of the region? So I'll zoom back in on that. What has to happen? Not necessarily like you don't have to just say, well, this team needs to win, this team needs to lose. Talk about like what your prediction could be, what players need to step up, what needs to happen in these certain matchups. Cole, I'll start with you with the Hofstra game. What does Alabama have to do in that game to get to the round of 32?
I think they need to limit the amount of threes Hofstra can make. I think we need to, like Ryan mentioned earlier, I think we need to drag them into our game. We need to make it a fast-paced game. I think the best way to do that is get up by a lot. If you get up by 10, 12 points at some point, Hofstra is going to feel like they need to play fast to keep up. I think that's when we can really put our foot on the gas. So I think that to me is the biggest thing, and then limiting their 3-point shooting opportunities, I think, is going to be big as well.
If Alabama is to beat Hofstra, we go to the second round, whether it be Texas Tech or Akron. We're gonna assume that it's Texas Tech. When we play Texas Tech, Ryan, what has to happen in that game? You mentioned Aiden Sherrill being a key piece in our guards, having to do well in pick and roll, but is there any? You said all the guards in particular. How important is Latrell Wrightsell in this tournament, as he's gotten a little bit cooled off in the last 2 games?
So a little backstory here on Latrell Wrightsell. I heard Ryan Pannone at the coaches clinic a few years ago. It was coming off the Final Four appearance. He said Latrell Wrightsell was the most important player in the country. He didn't say he was the best. He said he was the most important. And then I think, like, as time went on and Latrell's been in the program a little bit longer, when you watch the games, like the games he plays well, it feels like Alabama's a completely different level team than they are when he plays poorly or when he's hurt. To get him going, I would love to see him get going against Hofstra and be able to carry that over into the tournament. Tempo against Texas Tech is huge as well, and I love the way Latrell plays. He's willing to shoot it in transition. I think if we could get him going in the Hofstra game, they could carry over to Texas Tech, and I would love our chances there. All of our guards in that game would have to dictate tempo and pace and really turn it up against Texas Tech. And if we were able to do that, I would love our chances.
Okay, so in this scenario, Alabama gets to the Sweet 16, and we're likely going to see Michigan. If there were not to see Michigan, obviously I'd assume it's the winner of Georgia St. Louis. I think if Georgia's going to get as hot as they did against Alabama, that's the only reason I could see them getting past Michigan. But we'll assume Michigan gets to the Sweet 16, and they have one of the best teams in the country. They're a 1 seed for a reason. They have one of the best players, Yaxel Lindenborg, who was at UAB last year and was – I don't know if Alabama actually targeted him in the transfer portal, but I like to think they did. And he went to Michigan, and they've been one of the best teams in the country. But Michigan, however, has been hampered by injuries. One of their best guards off the bench, Carr, is out with a torn ACL, and it's having to ask Elliot Cadeau to do a lot. And we saw what happened earlier today against Purdue. Braden Smith worked circles around that defense and was able to get any passes he wanted, any shots that he wanted. What is going to be – we'll ask everybody here, and I'll go first. I'm going to ask what is going to have to be the key to beating Michigan, beating this juggernaut. Now, 2 years ago, Alabama played a 1 seed in the Sweet 16. It was North Carolina. That's a different animal than this Michigan team. I think this Michigan team is better than that North Carolina team was. But North Carolina was good because they had R.J. Davis was the ACC Player of the Year, and they had Armando Bacot, which was a great big. And Michigan has a multitude of other great players. But they have a good guard. They have Cadeau, and they have a great player in Yaxel Lindenborg. But it's going to have to be a thing where our bigs are going to have to show up in the game. I'm not asking to out-rebound Michigan, not asking for Aiden Sherrill to outscore Yaxel Lindenborg, but I was impressed in that game with Pringle. Pringle was aggressive, and he was also aggressive in the Clemson game. But Grant Nelson had his coming out party against North Carolina. In a game like the in this game, are we expecting someone to have a breakout game we weren't expecting? Because Grant Nelson at the time wasn't on his A game. We were expecting him to be the best player for Alabama that year. It ends up being Mark Sears, and then he just against North Carolina bursts for like once in a lifetime performance to send Alabama to its second ever Elite Eight, and now our third ever Elite Eight happened last year. But our bigs are going to have to step up. Aiden Sherrill is going to have a game where he's getting to the foul line a lot, putting Yaxel in maybe foul trouble or putting their 7-footer in foul trouble. I think that's going to be the key to beating Michigan is our bigs are going to have to show up. Cole, I'll start next with you. In a game against Michigan, what is going to have to happen for it to work for Alabama?
Sure. Yeah, I think you mentioned it. The bigs, especially defensively, I think are going to be huge. I think against Michigan, if that is the matchup in the Sweet 16, I think we're going to have to shoot well. We have to make threes. I don't really see a way for us to beat Michigan unless we're able to shoot from the outside because their interior defense is so good. It's going to be very hard for us to get consistent shots at the rim against those guys like Mara and Lindeborg inside that are so good defensively. So I think we're going to have to make our money from the 3-point line, and we're going to, like you said, we're going to have to limit how dominant they are inside to have a chance to beat Michigan.
What is your key to the game, Ryan? If it's a hypothetical Michigan matchup,
I think Cole knocked it out of the park right there. They are a huge roster, like multiple 6'9" guys. I think Mara is 7'3", right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's right. I mean, they're massive. We're going to have to battle, really be able to guard instead of foul trouble because I don't really trust Noah Williamson to play in that game. We're going to need Sherrill to play 40 minutes, 38 minutes. We're going to need him to play a lot. So I think just our bigs having good games. Maybe try to catch them, play small some, get the pace flying so fast that Mara can't be on the floor, but it's a huge ask. I mean, I think Michigan's really good, obviously. You don't get to be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament if you're bad, at least not to my recollection. So, I would say our bigs, and then once again, tempo. I know it feels like we keep talking about that, but when you talk about Alabama basketball in the Nate Oates era, tempo has kind of been the name of the game.
We'll go into a potential Elite Eight matchup. So we look at that bottom half of the bracket. Alabama's already played Tennessee. I guess we can do Iowa State first since they are the 2 seed and would be the favorite to win at the bottom here. Iowa State's got 3 great players that average above 13 points per game. Joshua Jefferson is probably known as their best player. He's a 6'9" forward. But their 2 top scorers are both forwards, and they both shoot it pretty well from the 3-point line. Not that they shoot it a ton, but they do shoot it well. In the Elite Eight game for Alabama 2 years ago, it was Mark Sears hitting 7 or 8 straight 3-pointers, not missing at all, and Alabama getting a 13-point comeback from. They were down 13 early in the first and were able to take the lead before halftime and then never gave it up after that. If this is an Elite Eight game, if Alabama made it that far, would this be LeBaron Philon's legacy game? Would this be the game where he full takes over? But also just in the tournament in general, how do you see LeBaron Philon doing in this tournament, Cole, and how important could he be in a potential Elite Eight matchup?
Yeah, I mean he's our best player, so I think he's going to be super important. I think he needs to hit threes. We've seen what happens when our best player's gone cold in the past with I believe it was 2022, the Brandon Miller year, where Brandon Miller struggled and we went out earlier than we expected. And we've seen what happens when our best players catch fire, like Mark Sears in that Elite Eight game, like you mentioned, Thomas. So having one guy that you feel like you can always go to get a bucket is huge in this tournament, especially. I've mentioned it a lot, but especially a guard that you feel like can go get you a bucket. So LeBaron's going to be massive.
I just realized one of Iowa State's their leading scorer, Momcilovic, I think that's how you say his name, shoots almost 50% from 3. And it's not like he shot – I miscorrect myself. I said he didn't shoot a lot of threes. I'm a liar. He shot over 250 3-point attempts, and he's almost 50% from 3. Momcilovic, yeah. I am sorry I disrespected your good name. You are a baller. When you have a guy like that going up against, that's kind of crazy. You got to match. You almost feel like you have to match them. So, like Ryan, you talked about Latrell Wright. So, what about Aiden Holloway in the Elite Eight? How important would he be in a game like that?
This could be a game. If it happened to be Iowa State, this could be a game that's huge for him. They don't have a ton of size, and I mean Aiden Holloway's not a very big player, so you could roll him out there and trust him in a game like that. He's shot it well for us almost all year. If you ask me any shooter on the team that I would trust, it would be Aiden Holloway the most. So I mean, a game like this against Iowa State, I think, would be huge for him. We could do a lot of stuff to get him open. Once again, because they're not a very big team. Like we talked about how big Michigan was, Iowa State not at all close to that. So I would love our guards to play well in that one, and I think it's a good matchup for them.
Yeah. One quick thing I want to mention on Iowa State before we move on, and it has to do with Momcilovic, like you mentioned, Thomas. Probably the best shooter in the country from what I've seen. I think he's incredible, but he is a very big defensive liability, and that could be something our guards could take advantage of in a potential Elite Eight matchup with Iowa State.
Cole, I'll just ask you, we'll go over a few more teams and then we'll actually pick the Midwest region. But for this Final Four video, we'll just talk about this. What about Kentucky? What if Kentucky runs the table to the Elite Eight? How are they? I'm not going to ask you to say like how we're not breaking down why Kentucky's doing good, but like if Kentucky's that far, Alabama's already played Kentucky, played them very early in the year. But that was when Kentucky was trying to figure out their best two players were not playing and they didn't really know how to figure it out. But say they figure it out, it's probably Otega Owe having an insane tournament. What does Alabama have to do if it is Kentucky to slow them down?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Kentucky because this bottom half of the region to me seems like it could be a bit of a chaos region. There's a lot of higher seeds here that I think could go on a decent run. Kentucky chief among them, but I also like SMU a lot. I like Santa Clara. I think could get hot and be pretty good. And these are two high seeds that I think are a little bit vulnerable in Iowa State and Virginia. For Kentucky specifically, I like that matchup probably better than I do against Iowa State or Virginia. Nate Oates has done very well against Kentucky and in particular Mark Pope over the last couple of years. It's another team that they have some shooters. Like you mentioned, the team's completely different from when we beat them earlier in the season. They don't have Lowe anymore. They don't have Quaintance anymore. But overall, I would like that matchup a little bit better just because we have the familiarity with most of their players. And overall, we've done a pretty good job against Mark Pope at Kentucky.
Virginia is one I want to talk about. They looked pretty good in the ACC tournament. I was honestly thinking that potentially Alabama could be a 4 and Virginia be a 5, but no, Virginia's a 3. And you got to give them credit where credit's due. They looked pretty good against Duke. Duke has had their injuries, but Virginia did look legit against Duke. They got 3 scorers that average above 10 points per game, and multiple guys that are shooting above 35% from 3. DeRitter is probably their best player, just a freshman, averaging 15.5 points per game, shooting 34% from 3. They got one guy shooting 43%. They have Malik Thomas, not Arkansas's Malik Thomas, is another Malik Thomas, is also averaging 12.5 points per game. They've almost shot 1,000 3-point attempts this year. What about Virginia? I'll swing it to whoever wants to talk about Virginia. What's the potential? I feel like honestly, they have a good path to the Elite Eight. I think a Virginia-Tennessee matchup in the second round would be awesome to watch. But if Virginia gets it that far, what does Alabama have to do to get by Virginia? I'll start with you, Cole.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Virginia's got some talented – they've got some talented guys. This is another matchup I like pretty well for Alabama, to be honest with you, because watching Virginia in this ACC tournament, I didn't really – think they had a lot of really good athletes. And I think Alabama, especially at the guard position, could really out-athlete Virginia in a potential Elite Eight game. That being said, I think they have that edge on size. You mentioned Ugano Yinso, I believe, who's at one point was an Alabama target. He was huge in the ACC tournament. He's a really, really good player inside. They also have a freshman named Grunlow that's really, really solid inside, top 10 in the country. They actually have 2 guys top 10 in the country in block percentage. So that would be another potential problem for Alabama in terms of like driving to the rim, trying to get shots at the goal. But overall, I kind of like that matchup for Alabama, especially in terms of our guards. I think our guards could really dominate that matchup.
Anything you have to add, Ryan, for Virginia?
Virginia's such a weird team for me. Like the record tells you that they're supposed to be great. And you look at the schedule and it's like, well, they lost to Butler and they lost to Virginia Tech, 2 teams that I don't think are very good. Mm-hmm. I would love our matchup with Virginia. I think our guards could kind of pick on theirs. Cole said that. I reiterate the point. Like I'd love to play Virginia in the Elite Eight with a chance to go to the Final Four. I'd love that matchup.
Last one we'll talk about is Tennessee. Tennessee is the only, I think, other option here. Alabama lost to Tennessee at home. They beat them on the road when Nate Ament went out. Nate Ament looks to be healthy. I think that would be the potential difference maker if Alabama is to play Tennessee again. LeBaron Philon really took over that game in Knoxville, kind of put the ball in his hands. We've done that multiple times this year against St. John's, Illinois, Oklahoma, Clemson. You can just name multiple games where it was close, and you see the difference was we just let LeBaron Philon do what he needs to do. So if Tennessee's the matchup, I think it's probably just going to come down to that. How hard is Tennessee playing defense? Are fouls going to be called appropriately? And I feel like in the tournament they get called. Sometimes some things get looked away, but I feel like sometimes in the tournament they're a little touchy on the foul calls. But we'll predict the Midwest region now. That was our take on Alabama if they were to make the Final Four. But now we will actually pick the Midwest region and who is going to be our Final Four selection. Is there a team that we think is going to the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight that's a surprise? Cole, we'll start with you. This is just a gut reaction. Obviously, this can change, but who do you have out of the Midwest region and who is a surprise in this region?
Sure. So Alabama fans probably aren't going to like this, but I'm going to have Michigan coming out of this region. I think they're the best team. I don't think Alabama matches up particularly well with them. I don't think really anybody matches up particularly well with them because they play such a weird style of basketball where they almost play through their bigs all the time, which is interesting. But I'm going to have Michigan coming out of this. Matching up in the Elite Eight, I think I'm going to have Kentucky here. Like I mentioned, I don't really trust Iowa State away from Iowa, or sometimes they're generally pretty good in the Big 12 tournament as well. They get a big fan base there. But I don't really trust them away from those two places. And then Virginia, you mentioned it, Ryan, haven't really won those top-level games. They've had I won't say a weak schedule because I think the SEC has a really good middle, the ACC, but they haven't won that high-profile game. Their best win of the year is probably Louisville on the road. Not a team I'm super willing to trust. So I think I'm going to take Kentucky here into the Elite Eight.
Who do you like, Ryan?
Alabama fans, if you didn't like Cole, you're not going to like me. I've got Tennessee coming out of the Midwest region.
Wow.
Yeah. Rick Barnes finally gets it done. Tennessee makes the Final Four. I do think Alabama makes the Elite Eight, though. I think Alabama makes the Elite Eight.
Oh, that would be bloodbath. Alabama and Tennessee in the Elite Eight. That is bloodbath. I'm going to say my prediction. I think Michigan loses in the round of 32. I think Georgia or St. Louis snipes them.
I think St. Louis beats Michigan in the round of 32.
I think one of those snipes them. I think Carr being injured is going to cost them here. It looked pretty rough today against Purdue. Now Purdue is Purdue, but that's just maybe recency bias. I also think Alabama has a good path to the Elite Eight. I'm actually going to go with Iowa State. I feel like the past few years they've been getting sniped early in the tournament, and I feel like this is the year they turn it around, and I think Iowa State gets out of the Midwest. So 3 different answers. Look at that. A 1 seed, a 2 seed, and a 6 seed in the Midwest. For fun, I have found our all preseason Final Four predictions.
Oh, no.
No, this is not.
Oh, no.
So,
I think I picked like NC State.
So Cole, we'll start with Cole. Cole, I'm going to write these down actually. Cole has, this is preseason, Cole has Kentucky.
Yikes.
So he put them in the Elite Eight. Maybe he's just feeling a little scared. He has Kentucky. He has Houston, not a bad pick. BYU and then Tennessee. So he can't get all.
Oh my God, Tennessee.
So that's preseason for Cole. Preseason for Ryan. Ryan had Houston. He has Purdue, Illinois, and then Duke. So,
I thought I picked NC State. Okay, I can live with that. That's
well, Ryan, you may need to cover your ears. So here's Thomas's for Final Four prediction: BYU, Alabama, NC State,
okay,
and St. John's. Which we'll get to St. John's in a second, but. Preseason predictions, Cole has Kentucky, Houston, BYU, Tennessee, Ryan, Houston, Purdue, Illinois, Duke, Thomas, BYU, Alabama, NC State, and St. John's. All 4 of mine made the tournament. I mean, I guess I can be happy with that. Even though NC State, I think they said the second to last team to get in. So at the Midwest, we'll continue going in just a second, but Midwest, Ryan had Tennessee, Cole had Michigan, and then I have Iowa State. So now we will go into the next region. I believe it is I don't remember actually. The South. The South is the first region we'll talk about that's non-Alabama region. Cole, we'll start with you again. Who do you have out of the South, and any particular matchups interest you? And then is there a Cinderella in here? I'll let you take the floor.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to take Florida out of this. Just watching them, the way they beat the brakes off of Alabama this year, they look like one of the better teams in the country. I know they just got smacked by Vanderbilt, so that's a potential scary Sweet 16 matchup if it gets there. But I think Florida's going to go through this. I'm not scared at all by either Clemson or Iowa in the second round. So I think they've got a pretty good path. I'll have them beating Illinois in the Elite Eight. I like Illinois. I do think they could give Florida some issue, but I will take Florida.
Ryan, you next one. I know that 12 seed staring at you.
Maybe my favorite region in the whole thing. I actually love some multiple upsets here. I like McNeese over Vandy. I like Troy over Nebraska.
Ooh, baby.
Nebraska still stands. They've never won an NCAA tournament game.
Oh, no.
I like VCU over UNC. And I like Texas A&M over St. Mary's. But pretty chalk here. I like Florida over Houston in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I like the potential of Troy beating Nebraska more than I do McNeese over Vandy. It's hard with this region because Houston, the second round, what they're not showing you in the South region is it's played in Houston, and Houston is the second seed. But I just don't see anyone beating Florida in this region. I just can't convince myself. The only team I can convince myself is Illinois if their guys are hot shooting the ball, if like Kylan Boswell is playing up to his ability since his injury. But yeah, I like Florida in this one as well. I think that has all three of us going with Florida on this one.
Yeah, one quick thing. Shout out Jonah Williams, Jeffrey Armstrong, Robbie Coker, all three guys on staff at McNeese. Sand Mountain Legends, those are my guys. Go McNeese. Go Pups.
Yeah, McNeese, the champions of the Southland. We'll go to the next region. I think, it's the East region. A lot of people are saying Duke got the shaft here. I don't necessarily think they did. However, I don't think Duke gets out of this region. But we'll start with Cole first. We'll keep the order going. Cole, what do you think about this region? Same kind of deal.
Okay, so I'm going to give a slight spoiler alert here. I'm going to have all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. I just think the 4 1 seeds are so much better than everybody else.
Is this the women's tournament?
It happened last year. I think the 4 1 seeds are just as good this year as they were last year. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that in. But if there's one that I think is the most vulnerable, I think it's Duke. And I think it's because of that potential matchup in the Sweet 16 against either St. John's or Kansas. I think both of those teams could give Duke some trouble. I do think Duke eventually wins that game, but I do like some potential chaos at the bottom of this region. I think South Florida, Brian Hodgson, Alabama legend, has a really good shot to make a nice run here. I also like UCLA. I think they have a good shot. I think I'll take UCLA out of the bottom half of this region, depending the health of a couple of their key players, either Dent and Tyler Bilodeau, both important players for them. But I think if they're healthy, I like UCLA's path here.
You next, Ryan?
I will take St. John's over UConn in the Elite Eight.
Fourth matchup. That would be their fourth matchup this year.
Yeah. I like what Cole said about South Florida. I really like their path. I think they can make the Sweet 16. Yeah, but I don't know if they can beat UConn, or I don't know that anybody in the bottom can beat UConn. I know they're not playing great, but I still trust Hurley in the NCAA tournament, and I really trust Rick Pitino in the NCAA tournament. So I think St. John's UConn will be an awesome Elite Eight game. I hope that's what we get. Looking forward to it.
Now that you've mentioned about South Florida having a potential run at a Sweet 16 Elite Eight, I now can see it. Louisville's not a strong 6 seed. You could potentially snipe Michigan State, and then if UConn gets out of that bottom, UConn has been susceptible. South Florida being to the Elite Eight is a potential bet. We all may 3 place together. We'll see. I like Duke to get the round to the Sweet 16 pretty easily, but I also have St. John's getting to the Sweet 16, and I have St. John's beating Duke and St. John's beating whoever pops out of the bottom of the bracket. And my one preseason Final Four pick will be correct. I'm locking in St. John's. So in this region, we have Ryan and I have St. John's and Cole has Duke. So we will go to the last region, the West region. And I think this is the most stacked region at the top with 1 Arizona, 2 Purdue, 3 Gonzaga, 4 Arkansas. I think that's a strong top four line there. We'll start with Cole and let him do his magic.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. I really like the all top 4 seeds in this region. I think are scary teams that could potentially get to a Final Four for sure. I already mentioned it. I'm going to have Arizona coming out of this region. They're going to be my title pick as well. Just watching them, the way they play, they're just unreal. And they're the only one of these top 4 teams that, I guess Florida as well, but that does not have a significant injury issue that you got to worry about. I think they also have maybe the best guard of those 4 teams in Jaden Bradley, former Alabama transfer, as well as Braden Burries, who will probably go top, probably a lottery pick. So I'm going to have them coming out of this, though I think that matchup with potentially Arkansas in the Sweet 16 would be one of the most fun games of the tournament. Bottom half, I'm going to go chalk as well. I like Purdue. If I was going to pick a team that's outside the top 4 to the Final Four, it would have probably been Purdue, but I didn't want them matched up against Arizona. I don't think that's a very good matchup for them. But I like Purdue to get to the Elite Eight.
Ryan, you?
Yeah, I've got Arizona over Purdue as well. There is one matchup in this one that would really excite me. BYU Gonzaga would be awesome. I think that could be an awesome game. Probably the last chance we would get to the edge of advance to play college basketball, but I think that would be an awesome game. Arizona, Arkansas could be a really good game. I just think Arizona is so good. I mean, they lost 2 games all year.
Mm-hmm.
They were back to back. I trust Arizona big time. I think they're the best team in the country. I'm going to pick them in the Final Four to win the national title as well. I trust Arizona completely.
Yeah, the bottom half of the bracket just it seems not like a layup to Purdue, but it really, really does. Like Purdue and Gonzaga, if that's the matchup of Purdue and BYU, I like Purdue matches up so much better against those teams. The top of the bracket, it's that potential Arizona-Arkansas matchup. And also just another tangent thing. I don't know why, but every year I feel like Wisconsin's a 5 seed and they play a 12 seed that has like 30 wins and they always lose. This happened with James Madison, I know, 2 years ago. I just feel like this always happens to Wisconsin, but I think it's Arizona and Arkansas. I think whoever wins that matchup is going to be the Final Four team. I will lean Arizona, and I will lead Arizona to win the West. And 3 for 3, I also think Arizona is the national champion too. I think they're the best team. Jaden Bradley, Koa Pete, Braxton Burries. They have like 8 guys that play significant minutes that could all be starters at a lot of places. So I will lock in Arizona as well. So to recap, Ryan's Final Four teams are Tennessee, Florida, St. John's, and Arizona, with Arizona being the national champion. Cole has Michigan, Florida, Duke, and Arizona. He's going 4 1 seeds for the second year in a row. There goes my pen. And then the last for me, I have Iowa State, Florida, St. John's, and Arizona. So if you want to make a bet of Iowa State losing their first round game, do it now because I picked them to win. But all in all, we'll end it with
I have one question.
Yes, go for it.
Do we all have Arizona over Florida in the finals? Or does
I do.
Okay, I do as well.
I would also have Arizona over St. John's.
Okay.
Rick Pitino gets his fifth team to the Final Four, or fourth different team to the Final Four, and he almost gets a national title. But last thing is for Alabama, how do you like this draw overall? And then, like we mentioned about going to the Final Four, we already talked about that. But overall, how would you assess Alabama's season? What would be considered a success? I guess that's the last question. What's considered a successful tournament for Alabama? I'll start with you, Cole.
I think a Sweet 16 would be a success, honestly. Not a huge success, but a solid season with a team that I don't think is necessarily one of Alabama's best. I think we've talked about it a lot on this channel that the transfers, a lot of the transfers we've gotten are not as big, not as good as we kind of expected them to be. So overall, this was kind of always going to be a bit of a step down from the last couple of years. But I think getting to a Sweet 16 is always a good thing. Anything past that, I think, is a huge success.
Anything you want to add, Ryan, about potential? What's a successful season for this successful bracket?
Yeah, I try not to get caught up in defining success based on NCAA tournament results. It's really hard to win games in the NCAA tournament. But yeah, Sweet 16 I think would be really ideal. This roster I don't think it's Final Four caliber. I don't think it's great. We missed on all the transfers, and I think our regular season was by all measures successful. Like I didn't think we'd be the 2 in the SEC. But the Sweet 16 I think would be absolutely success. The second weekend in Alabama is still a huge deal. Anything past that's icing on the cake. I mean, I hope we win the national title, but I mean, I don't think the roster has that capability.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you make the Sweet 16 and lose to Michigan, I don't think there's really – you just tip your cap. But, yeah, Sweet 16 is great. This is, I think, the 5th time under Nate Oates that Alabama has been a 4-seed or higher, and before Nate Oates, it only happened 4 times. We are in the golden era of Alabama basketball, and I'm so happy that I can go to Selection Sunday not nervous. I know we're in the tournament, whereas, 10 years ago in the Anthony Grant, Avery Johnson days, you went to this kind of sweating, being like, are we the first team out for the 5th year in a row or whatever it was? Are we going to be a 1 seed the NIT again and lose to 8 seed Norfolk State? But it's great that we're in this position. But that is our north of 45-minute bracket reveal recap. Tune in this week. We will break down some Hofstra and show you what they'd like to do best, like we talked about. And then we'll also I will talk to the boys about potentially us coming on and doing a full bracket and making a perfect bracket where all 3 of us pick each game and kind of just have some fun with it, creating the Roll Tide Rewind perfect bracket show, which will be busted after 1 game as they always do. But I appreciate y'all guys joining. I appreciate everyone watching. And until next time, I hope everyone has a great rest of their week, and Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, go Pokes.